Welcome to Caribbean Strategy Session, the go-to podcast for entrepreneurs, business leaders, and innovators. Whether you're building a startup, scaling your enterprise, or exploring opportunities in the region, we've got the insight, strategies, and success stories to inspire your journey. Join us as we dive into the world of business, Caribbean style. Now, let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to the Caribbean Strategy Session. It's your girl, Denisha Mayers-Gardner, along with your guy, Joseph Cox. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Denisha. Just taking it one day at a time.
Well, that's all we could do, right? Because everything is so dynamic now.
No, you call it dynamic, I call it festive. That's my word for 2025. So
That's a
help me.
nice way
I
of
don't
putting it.
think I have ever in my working life been in a period of such uncertainty, let's say erratic policy making, just fundamental a topsy-turvy world, because you're just never
I'm
sure what is going on.
glad you still choose to use the word festive, though. That has a positive connotation to it, so I appreciate
After all.
that. So it's been a while since we caught up. I wanted to ask you, outside of, as I said, all of the things that are happening regionally and internationally, outside of taking all of that in, what have you been up to?
Me, I've just been a quiet little fellow. You know, I am involved in another podcast. I'm also involved in consultancy. Just
So tell
keeping
our
myself
listeners
quiet
and viewers,
and out of trouble.
tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about that other podcast.
Podcast. All right, the other podcast that I have is the Caribbean Business Review. And what it really is, it is what you would call, it's a weekly podcast on a media platform. What it is founded on is, it's based on conversation, but the conversation is data driven. So what you have is that there's components, the podcast has interviews, has an interview segment with a number of persons, business leaders, etc., from both regional and internationally. But it also has a dedicated news segment where you're looking at regional news. They also have a dedicated global news segment, as well as looking at doing a commentary and looking at how all of this fits into the Caribbean dynamic. So, for example, when you have all this nuance, let me put it that way, trade policy coming out of the United States, and the ILO puts out a story that says 84 million jobs are at risk. That is something that would catch your attention and which you have to discuss, because that is a real time. Now, the difference between that podcast and what we're doing here is that one has a news component and a heavy statistical component. And to buttress the entire presentation, there is also a weekly newsletter that encapsulates additional data that business persons and general people, persons might want to avail themselves as well as looking at some of the deeper stories that have influenced the economic, business, and financial climate for the week.
Fantastic. So what I'll do, I will put to the bottom of this episode a link for persons desirous of both viewing your podcast as well as getting that newsletter. So I will share that link at the bottom of this episode.
And for the newsletter, persons want the email for it is Caribbean Business Review, one word, no dots, no dashes, nothing. Caribbean Business Review.
And I will share it as well to the bottom of this episode.
I appreciate
Great.
that.
So, Joe, I have one, before we get into today's discussion, I have one more question. One of our viewers asked me directly to ask you for an opinion on something that has happened recently. So I'm going to read a little bit from the New York Post here, and I'd like you to share your thoughts on this new development. Well, it's pretty new because this is dated June 4th, 2025. President Trump signed a proclamation suspending the entry of foreign students intending to study at Harvard University for the next 6 months. This action affects new applicants under F1, M1, J1 visa categories and could potentially potentially impact nearly 7,000 existing international students at Harvard. The administration cited concerns over national security, crime, alleged noncompliance by Harvard as reasons for this targeted restriction. In 2024, U.S. consular officers denied a record of 278,000 student visa applications, surpassing the number of denials in previous years. The surge in denials reflects a more stringent vetting process and heightened scrutiny of international applicants. How does this, in your opinion, affect Caribbean students? And how do you think we should or can react?
All right, let me start with the last part first. The reality of life is that the issuance of a visa to any country is entirely discretionary. And there is really nothing you can do about it. I mean, that's the honest truth. You can appeal, but it is entirely within their discretion to so treat. The visa, being in possession of a visa does not, even upon point of entry, does not guarantee entry. Because you do realize there are circumstances when you can be declined entry at a point. So let me just clear up that. So where that is concerned, that's not in terms of the specificity about the visa restriction there's not much you can do about that. In terms of, if you notice, the story is very specific to Harvard. No, if that was to be expanded outside of just Harvard and to general, students looking to study in the United States, or the persons looking to study in the United States, then the implications would be they would be in serious jeopardy, because it would deny them the access to the market. But this is that blade swings both ways. Because what persons need to recognize is that the student visa or the student body, student entry into the United States, it is multifaceted. One, a survey I saw some weeks ago, it contributes around 40 to 50 billion. All right. So that is one aspect of it. So that I don't know any country you can really sneeze at that and dismiss it. So that's one part of it. The second part of it now would be to look at United States is a country that has been built upon immigrants, irrespective of what persons want to say. It is an immigrant driven society. Now, if you, as a matter of policy, try to exclude those from other countries who have actually been contributing quite positively to the development of a number of your sectors, etc., etc., you're scoring an own goal, right?
Yeah.
So that, I'm not sure how far that will go. Now, in the specific case of Harvard, I'm sure that the university will go to the courts for remedy, because I've never heard of anybody enacting legislation or policy to speak to a very specific institution. If you're trying to put it in for everybody, that is one thing. But if you're going to very specific institutions, then obviously that's going to be leading to a court case. But in terms of our students now, because here's the rub of the whole thing. If enough pressure is brought to bear on the American universities now, like the Harvards and others, right? Yeah, they do have a remedy. I wouldn't say it's immediate, but they do have a remedy as well. They can launch offshore campuses where the people they don't necessarily have to come into the United States, but they can still avail themselves of the university offering. Yeah. No, so the point I'm making is that you can end up with the offshore campuses whereby so the universities can respond in that way, as well as, to be truthful, you have other markets that will be there trying to drive, their own thing. So you will have universities also trying to up their game and trying to woo those potential students. Because let's be clear right now, it is a lucrative market. Do not kid yourself. The fact that you have people in here, for example, in the United States, for years, if not decades, still paying student loan, tells you that these things are not cheap. So the fact of life is that it's a matter of not just the politics of it, but it's also a matter of straight economics. So, it can swing both ways. But in terms of the specific thing about what can the Caribbean do about the visa aspect, can't do anything. Can't do anything about that. That is entirely within the country's discretion.
I hear you, and I hope that answers our listeners, viewers' question. All right, so let's get to the.
I hope they don't want me to lose my little access, because that is not going to happen.
Exactly. Well, I don't think they want. They just wanted your opinion. So
Oh
let's
boy,
get
no man, I'm
now
just
down to today's episode. It is really centered around artificial intelligence and the Caribbean and business. That's the essence of the episode of today. And we will be discussing same with the CEO of GNC Labs. He says his government name is Gerard, the applied AI guy. However, I think it's really Gerard Llanos. So, Gerard, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanisha. Thank you so much, Joseph, for having me.
no problem.
Right. So, Jared, let's get started. Tell
Yeah.
everyone a little bit about what inspired you to develop GNC Labs and focus on artificial intelligence in the Caribbean.
Okay. Somewhere around November 2021, somewhere there, the powers that be decided to make large language models publicly available. I am, by trade, a business consultant, and I immediately caught the implications of publicly available intelligence with no prior. I mean, I'm not a tech guy, a tech purist in any way. So, I mean, AI is not new. But at that time, this was a business person, me, quickly realizing that the world had changed. And I immediately told, this is my AI adoption misfire story. Misfire story. I immediately told my staff, if you can't do it with AI, don't do it. Yeah, I was without a staff. That happened the end of November. I was without a staff before Christmas. People were so freaked out by a change imposed on them that they rather face the job market than stay in a space where they had to evolve. By January, I was focusing. So I started an organization called Foundry Caribbean, and I started doing AI literacy training almost immediately. And everybody thought, and to this day, some people still think that I'm fairly crazy. But what we've seen is that organizations and institutions have begun to ask us, Jared, what to do. Because we were, before we even knew what we were doing, sometimes we just know a little bit more than the person knows nothing. But that's enough to get the ball rolling as it relates to change. So our story is understanding immediately that this changed everything and doing something about it immediately. And somebody right now listening to this as we go into the conversation, some people may be truly hearing or contextualizing AI and business and the economy and the future of the Caribbean for the first time. And they also have to recognize that this changes everything and do something immediately or not. And we will discuss the implications of either choice. So I think that that's a good start, and I'm looking forward to this conversation with your learned selves.
Dear Lord, I don't know about learned where this is concerned. Yeah, the thing that strikes me with artificial intelligence is one that it evokes all sorts of emotions, some positive, some negative. One of it is fear, another one anticipation. But at the end of the day, in an environment where you have serious skills gap, right? Whereby, for example, looking at our business processing outsourcing sectors, which has basically become like an employment catchment for a number of from high school straight through university, a catchment for those graduates. And given the context that a lot of the work that they do easily replicated by technology, how real are the fears, or are persons just overthinking this process? And there needs to be some level of re-engineering of our business community to avail themselves of the opportunities there too.
Okay. What's going on in our world is that what humans do has already changed. What humans do for money, how humans think, and how humans act ends in an economic output has already changed. Now, the policy, the politics, the people, the economics, the systems, they probably won't allow the change to happen like snap. But it doesn't change that shutting down a call center and making a call center completely, whether that's a good choice or not, which we can get into later. Technically speaking, from an ICT perspective, a call center can be completely automated. You can have full conversations with the computer. You'll never know it's not a person you're talking to. And I being honest with you right now, in this conversation, you cannot be 100% sure that you're even speaking to me right now. And give it a year, that information will not be a secret, it will be commonplace. My favorite LLM by far, for instance, This is how quickly business models become affected, even in the world of technology. Google was nowhere in the video creation conversation all along. It was Soma, it was ChatGPT, it was HeyGen, there were all sorts of different applications. Out of nowhere, Google drops VO3, and VO3 is doing, you cannot tell the difference. If VO does a video for you, you literally cannot tell the difference, and it is piping everything out there in terms of video creation that is like commercially, like normal guy kind of vibe. What does that do to videographers? What does it do to the cameraman? What does that do to the editor? So if we look on that surface level, and it really is the surface level, it may feel like somebody who is settled into, I capture footage for a living, I edit video for a living, I answer the phones in the call center for a living, I am an attorney for a living, I am an accountant for a living, I'm an engineer for a living. Oh, wait a second, it's not just minimum wage earners. So we have to begin to look holistically. And holistically, the conversation is positive if we do something and disastrous if we do nothing.
Well, all right, let me stop you right there and just ask you one very quick follow-up. How much time do we have, frankly, to get our ducks in a row to really be ready for what's going on? Because the truth of it is that, we have a number of persons, as I said, for example, BPO is a catchment for a number of groups. What you're saying is that the technologies are, and quite correctly, the technology is already here. But at the same time, we know that there is a learning curve that we will have to go up to treat with it. So how much time do we really have to basically mitigate the most adverse impacts that could come?
It's a nuanced question, but the answer to it is more than we think and less than we need. The context of the conversation is that I used to think for quite a while that I was alone in the world, and there weren't other people thinking about and doing AI and human-centric AI and applied AI and these types of things in the way that I did it. And then I stumbled upon a community. So, please allow me to give greetings to my global community at AI Salon. And AI Salon provides funding and a sense of community and events, and their chapters all over the world with experts who are experts and just everyday people as well, who are applying AI to doing amazing things. So it tells us that the world is finding all sorts of different ways. People all over the world are finding all sorts of different ways to differentiate and to innovate and to earn in the age of AI. What it has taught me as it relates to time is that nobody anywhere is actually getting AI right yet. And I used to think like, hey, we so backward in the Caribbean, what are we doing? And then I started speaking to people in other spaces, and then I realized they're not that far ahead of us. Technically speaking, they're way ahead. In terms of organizations willing to sink billions of dollars into the adoption curve and do things, they're way ahead. But I will tell you what, and tomorrow we have a workshop for the Trinidad and Tobago Service Coalition of. And in that, we will speak about adoption for business. And one of the things that we will touch on are 10 absolute horror stories of AI adoption gone wrong. Companies who have lost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. A complete mess because they overestimated the readiness of the technology and their organizations.
But Gerard, saying all of that, give me a figure. 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. Give me a figure.
I don't want to give you a figure, but let me give you an answer. To the extent that, because this is the key in it, if our economies, and I understand that we are an economic podcast, so we talk in the same language, the economies that are somewhat self-contained, the economies that are consumption-based economies, the economies that may not necessarily be carried by a heavy export component, whether of services or products, they can continue to depend on a status quo that's going to remain mainly unchanged. However, you identified where the problem is going to come in. The people who export services, for instance, BPO organizations, at some point, sooner or later, probably sooner, we're going to see AI cutting into those jobs.
Well, I've already seen, Gerard, and I think I'm happy, but I think you're being a little more positive in your outlook. I know, but the reality is, and if we look at some of the numbers, the reality is that AI has taken over today as of May, and I'll share that as of May 2024, it has taken 30% of some jobs have been in some way replaced by AI in the US as of today. And reasonable estimates share that by 2030, 12 million jobs in the US will be totally replaced by AI. Now, it does create, obviously, upskilling or opportunity, because there's no world that I can see in the near future that can exist without humans. But some of the jobs, and BPO is one of them, but you spoke earlier about legal services, transcription services. Some of the jobs that we know, customer service today, that we know of today, it can easily, and I will use the word easily, can easily replace them. And from an operational efficiency point of view, companies will be willing to use that option. So I don't know that we have all this patient time. BPOs have closed in Guyana. I think 2 of them closed within the last 6 to 8 months. And that captures, as Joe would have mentioned earlier, a huge segment of the population. So
It does.
what do we do? We kind of jumped into it a little bit.
Yeah.
So for the persons that know AI only as a term that they hear in passing,
Yes.
what is AI and how does it, especially as it pertains to business and operational efficiency, what is artificial intelligence? What does that term encompass?
Is this a phone?
It's
Yeah.
a computer.
It's a computer. A fairly powerful computer. Everybody in the Caribbean, few exceptions exist, has an extremely powerful computer in their pocket. Everybody in the Caribbean, exceptions exist, of course, because we do have a digital divide. We do have problems with access to internet and access to devices. But theoretically speaking, the vast majority of the odd 13 million of us in the English-speaking Caribbean can access internet if we want to, if we need to. Fair statement.
Yeah.
I think we have some large exclusions in that, but all things being equal, people have phones and people could find internet, and the people who can't find internet, we need to find internet for them. Every one of those people now has superpowers in their pockets. Everybody who has a computer or a phone has unlimited context, unlimited knowledge, and unlimited ability to implement if they only know how to use it. So you have people who have grown into, and we have a long-standing culture as it relates to consumption economics, as it relates to being counter-competitive, literally anti-competitive, anti-innovation in business, and in many cases, not hungry enough. I remember about 10 years ago, we were doing a deal with some Chinese businessmen, and they told me, Gerard, we like you, but our problem with Caribbean business, you're all too slow. We don't want you to be that problem. We want you to be fast, like we are fast. And I think that I'm fairly above the curve. And I felt like I was still below standard in terms of the velocity that these guys hungry. They don't miss it. They didn't have nothing like AI back then. And their economic output proves it. It validates. They are finding better and faster ways to do things. And that was before AI was even a thing. So what
hold
I am
on.
saying, go ahead.
Let me ask a direct question. As I said, I find economics people kind of like lawyers, as get these very beautiful general statements. Let me ask a question. You are saying to me that artificial intelligence gives persons the ability to do things,
Anything.
extremely
Anything.
faster. It speeds up the ability to execute anything.
Anything.
In a nutshell, that is what AI does.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes. So in the world where you can do anything, when anybody can do anything, what will our people do with that power? And we have to live with the reality that whether we like it or not, technology is in the process of replacing many of the things we do for money right now. I am a consultant. I'm not a better consultant than the AI. When it comes to knowledge recall and knowledge playing back, pulling random disparate things and putting them together, I can do that better than the machine. I will tell you what I could do better than the machine just now. You can't be a better economist than the machine. You can't be a better researcher than a machine. You can't be a better lawyer. A lawyer, it has AIs right now winning lawsuits on their own. They're not even doing anything. They're just picking lawsuits, filing documents, case win, money in the bank. Literally happening in the US right now. So there's no industry that's immune because we no longer operate in a global economy that is run on scarcity of knowledge. The previous incarnation of the economy was, I know something you don't know. So I am either going to use that thing that you don't know to charge you for a service, or I am going to solve your problem with a product and charge you for the product. Now we are in a situation where the knowledge part of it is no longer there. You know, simple thing, you no longer need a mock-up or a prototype to begin marketing. People make an AI prototype of the thing, start marketing it, see if people like it. If people like it, start selling it. And these are just me cherry picking and throwing use cases of how people are applying AI in a very non-linear way. I want us to get linear about the conversation because that is them. And for the most part, today, right now, and to answer your question about time frame, I would say for the rest of this year and all of next year, it'll be all right either way. I think that by somewhere within late 2026, the implications are going to become a bit more pronounced. And there are several factors outside of technology that are going to affect those factors. Some of them are political. Some of them have to do with how trade arrangements will evolve as it relates to the changing political climate in the US. Some of it will arise out of a more adversarial China, because China at this moment are throwing advanced AI tools on the market for free that are literally destroying very profitable AI companies. AI companies that were profitable 2 months ago now have free competition coming out of China. A very good example, I canceled my 11 Labs account last night. 11 Labs does realistic voice recreation. China dropped a free version of it. These are all forms of economic aggression between countries as
So,
arising out of this.
Gerard, my thing is,
Yes.
right? My thing is, and I still think there are persons that are way ahead of the curve than others. So as you said, even if you know a little more than somebody that knows, then you're an expert, right? But there are persons, and I was telling you earlier, up to a couple months ago, I would have been one of those persons that, we have a business analyst. Anything you need to figure out, you just hand it to that department and they give you back the information and you work with it. That was me up until a couple months ago. That was my interaction with AI from a business perspective. Now,
Yes.
that has changed, as I said, over the last couple of months. But there are a lot of people that still, especially small, medium-sized businesses, that especially the older business people that are accustomed, that are used to doing things in a particular way, that don't have that interaction, as Joe would have said, either because of anxiety or fear or distrust. They don't understand the capabilities of AI and how it can help them become more competitive. In some instances, at some point, may put them out of business if they don't catch up. So my question to you is, what are companies like yourself? Let's start there. What are companies like yourself doing to get the Caribbean up to speed with the use of AI?
We are pioneers in AI literacy training, and we're also pioneers in applied AI training for professions. So before we get into the company side of it, somebody may, and guys, everything I teach is on YouTube as it relates to it. There's just a million sources of information out there. If you could use WhatsApp, you could use AI. First thing, super simple. So learning to talk to the machine, learning to talk to AI is essentially AI literacy. After you pass, we teach this in our AI adoption program, the stages of AI competency. After you pass the basics of, you begin to talk to AI, you get it to write a letter, you ask it some questions about something that you didn't know about, you let it teach you something, you let it write a poem, write a calypso, and then you realize, oh, this is cool. I like this. I try to talk to it and it gives me some problem or the other, and I'm like, oh, this is now crazy. It's telling me the wrong thing. And then you talk to it again, and like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And then you realize that AI is very much, I don't want to use the word alive, but it's a living
That's
thing.
scary.
You have to kind of pet it. You have to train it. You have to, but once you develop your own style of conversing with AI in a way that gets you results, that is the heart of AI literacy, which is the first level. The second level in our businesses, after we pass the individual stage, we could do something with it. The second thing that we do is get to team AI literacy. If we're in a company together, if we're in a team together, if we're going to start a business together, one person shouldn't be like, hey, I am using AI, and the other person be like, I don't know what AI is. And then the third person is like hiding in the corner. I don't know what AI is, but they're hiding in a corner because they're trying to create some sort of competitive advantage. So we have to get on the same page. We live in an AI-driven world. We are using AI. We have our shared business goals, and AI is a tool that can help. And that is when businesses begin to develop the ability to utilize AI in very broad ways, and people will have their own take on things. Everybody in the Caribbean is now a potential innovator because they don't have to read the textbook to learn about it. They don't have to watch the videos. They don't have to pull the PDFs. They don't have to burn the midnight oil. You can begin to teach yourself just about anything and apply just about anything. So your context and your skills and your capabilities begin to go up dramatically. More on that later. The last and most important thing, there are not enough professionals in the Caribbean. And when I say professionals in the Caribbean, we still don't have enough people who are educated. And if they're not educated in the classical went to Harvard situation, not enough people are reading. Not enough people are consuming podcasts like this. Not enough people are on YouTube watching things that make sense. When you become a professional, AI competency becomes important. Can I do work with AI and carry it to the boardroom? Can I do work with AI and support a CEO or support a prime minister? Can I do work with AI and publish it? Can I do work with AI as a student and it be academically honest and assisted by AI and be higher level work? And that is where that element of bridging the gap between I know how to use it to I can demonstrate that I can function at the highest level using this tool is the next level of competency.
Okay, we're going to stop there for today, folks. We are really trying to do these episodes in bite-sized bits, around 30 minutes each, to give persons time to view them, either on their way to or from work or at their lunch break. Not too much at a time, but trust me, part 2 of this episode is going to be very interesting. Gerard, the applied AI guy. We're going to talk some more, obviously, about AI, how we can use it to improve operational efficiency in the workplace, about ethics, about trust, about training, about regulation, about, schools and government, what they are doing to ensure that we are ready for what is inevitably coming. So please stay tuned. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Please leave your comments. We are more than happy to engage. And thanks. See you soon. Bye.